What happens when Hollywood's most intense superstar meets a talk show host who thinks he can break down one of the industry's most guarded personalities? Tonight, we're uncovering the explosive confrontation that saw Tom Cruise storm off the Jimmy Kimmel Live set after the host pushed too far into territory that should have remained off-limits. This wasn't just a typical celebrity interview that went sideways. This was a calculated attempt to humiliate one of cinema's biggest legends that backfired in spectacular fashion. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments whether you think some topics should be completely off-limits in celebrity interviews. The atmosphere backstage at Jimmy Kimmel Live was unusually tense that evening. Tom Cruise had arrived with his usual entourage and trademark intensity, but something felt different about his energy. The production staff noticed he seemed more focused than usual, almost laser-focused, as he prepared for what was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance for his latest action blockbuster. Cruise was known for his professionalism and his ability to stay on message during interviews, but those closest to him could sense an underlying tension that hadn't been there in previous appearances. Jimmy Kimmel, meanwhile, had been planning something special for weeks. Sources within the production revealed that Kimmel had been researching extensively, not just about Cruise's current projects, but diving deep into the more controversial aspects of his personal life and beliefs. The host had been feeling pressure from network executives to create more viral moments, and he saw this interview as his opportunity to generate the kind of social media buzz that would dominate headlines for days. As the show's opening music played and the studio audience erupted in their usual enthusiastic applause, Cruise made his entrance with that famous megawatt smile and boundless energy that had captivated audiences for decades. The crowd's reaction was electric, a testament to his enduring star power and the genuine affection millions of fans still held for him despite years of tabloid scrutiny. He worked the crowd like the seasoned professional he was, pointing to fans, giving thumbs up, and settling into the guest chair with the confidence of someone who had done this routine countless times. Kimmel opened the interview with standard promotional questions about Cruise's latest film, discussing the stunts, the preparation, and the dedication that had become synonymous with his name. Cruise responded with his characteristic passion and intensity, describing the months of training, the attention to detail, and his commitment to giving audiences the most authentic experience possible. The conversation flowed smoothly, with both men displaying the easy chemistry that made for good television. But as the interview progressed, viewers who were paying close attention began to notice subtle shifts in Kimmel's approach. His questions started to veer away from the film and toward more personal territory. At first, it seemed like natural curiosity about Cruise's life and career, the kind of gentle probing that was standard in late-night interviews. Cruise handled these questions with his usual diplomatic skill, redirecting back to his work while maintaining his charm and enthusiasm. The first red flag came when Kimmel brought up Cruise's well-documented commitment to his beliefs and how they influenced his approach to his career and personal life. Cruise's response was measured and respectful, explaining how his convictions helped him stay focused and motivated in a challenging industry. But there was something in Kimmel's follow-up questions that suggested this wasn't going to remain a respectful discussion of personal philosophy. Kimmel's tone began to shift almost imperceptibly, becoming more probing, more aggressive. His questions started to carry an undertone of skepticism and barely concealed mockery that was completely inappropriate for what was supposed to be an entertainment interview. Cruise, with his years of media experience, recognized the change immediately. His posture straightened slightly, his responses became more careful, and that famous intensity began to take on a more defensive quality. The audience, still largely unaware of the brewing tension, continued to respond positively to both men, but those watching closely could see the warning signs. Cruise's smile became more forced, his gestures more controlled. He was clearly trying to maintain his professionalism while navigating increasingly hostile territory. Kimmel pressed forward, with questions that had nothing to do with Cruz's current project and everything to do with generating controversy. When Cruz attempted to redirect the conversation back to his film, Kimmel would acknowledge the deflection, but then immediately circle back to more personal and invasive topics. It was becoming clear that this wasn't an interview anymore. It was an interrogation disguised as entertainment. The tension in the studio was building to a breaking point, and everyone present was about to witness one of the most explosive confrontations in late-night television history. Part 2. The Confrontation. Ignites. The moment that changed everything came when Kimmel leaned back in his chair with a smirk and said, "Tom, I have to ask you about some of the more interesting aspects of your personal beliefs. A lot of people watching tonight are probably wondering how someone can jump off buildings for movies, but still believe in some pretty out-there concepts." The studio fell uncomfortably quiet as the audience realized this wasn't going to be the fun, light-hearted interview they had expected. Cruz's reaction was immediate and controlled, but the intensity behind his eyes was unmistakable. "Jimmy, I'm here to talk about my film and the incredible work our team put into creating something special for audiences. My personal beliefs are exactly that, personal, and they've helped me become a better person and a more dedicated actor." His voice carried a warning that anyone with sense would have heeded, but Kimmel was too focused on his planned ambush to recognize the danger. Instead of backing down, Kimmel doubled down with the kind of calculated cruelty that revealed his true character. "Come on, Tom. You can't expect people not to be curious about some of the more unusual things you believe in. I mean, we're talking about some pretty wild stuff here, right?" The false casualness in his tone made it clear this wasn't innocent curiosity. This was a deliberate attempt to embarrass and humiliate his guest on national television. The audience began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. Some people were looking around at each other with confusion and concern, clearly not enjoying where this conversation was heading. Others seemed frozen, unsure whether they were witnessing entertainment or a personal attack. The energy in the room had completely changed from excitement to tension and unease. Cruz's professionalism was being pushed to its absolute limit. "Jimmy, I think you're crossing a line here that has nothing to do with entertainment and everything to do with disrespect. I've been very open about how my beliefs have helped me in my life and career, and I don't think mocking someone's personal convictions is what your audience came here to see tonight." But Kimmel wasn't finished. If anything, Cruz's measured response seemed to encourage him to push even harder. "Oh, come on, Tom. Don't be so sensitive. I'm just asking the questions that everyone's thinking. Surely someone as successful as you can handle a little friendly questioning about some of the more colorful aspects of your worldview." That word, sensitive, was like gasoline on a fire. Cruz's entire demeanor shifted as he realized he wasn't dealing with a professional interviewer, but with someone who was deliberately trying to provoke and humiliate him for cheap entertainment. "Sensitive?" Cruz repeated, his voice carrying a new edge that made everyone in the studio pay attention. "Jimmy, there's nothing sensitive about expecting basic respect during what's supposed to be a professional interview." The host's mask was beginning to slip, revealing the petty, ratings-hungry person underneath his carefully constructed television persona. "Look, Tom, I'm just doing my job here. This is what talk show hosts do. We ask the questions that people want answered. If you can't handle that, maybe late-night television isn't for you." That comment was a massive tactical error. Cruz had been appearing on talk shows for decades, charming audiences and hosts alike with his enthusiasm and professionalism. For Kimmel to suggest he couldn't handle late-night television was not just insulting, it was demonstrably false, and everyone watching knew it. Cruz's response was swift and devastating. "Jimmy, I've been doing interviews longer than some of your staff have been alive. I know the difference between professional curiosity and cheap shots designed to create viral moments at someone else's expense. What you're doing right now isn't journalism. It's not entertainment. It's just cruelty disguised as comedy." The audience was beginning to turn against their host. Scattered murmurs of disapproval could be heard throughout the studio, and some people were actually shaking their heads at Kimmel's behavior. The carefully orchestrated television environment was starting to crumble as viewers realized they were watching something genuinely uncomfortable and inappropriate. Kimmel's desperation was becoming more obvious by the second. His planned ambush was backfiring spectacularly, but instead of cutting his losses and apologizing, he made the decision to escalate even further. "Tom, I think you're overreacting here. These are legitimate questions about public aspects of your life. If you put yourself out there, you have to expect people to ask about it." Cruz stood up from his chair, a move that clearly wasn't in anyone's script. The camera operators scrambled to adjust their shots, and the production team looked panicked. "Put myself out there?" Cruz's voice was rising now, his famous intensity fully engaged. "Jimmy, I put my work out there. I put my dedication to my craft out there. I put my commitment to entertaining audiences out there. I didn't put my personal, spiritual beliefs out there for you to mock and ridicule on television." The confrontation was reaching a boiling point, and Kimmel was about to make the comment that would trigger the final explosion that would end with security escorting one of Hollywood's biggest stars off the set. The host's next words would reveal just how far he was willing to go to humiliate his guest, and Cruz's response would show everyone watching exactly why some lines should never be crossed. Part 3. The final explosion. What Kimmel said next shattered every boundary of professional decency. Looking directly at Cruz with a condescending smirk, he declared, "Tom, maybe if you spent less time with your space alien friends and more time in the real world, you'd understand that this is just normal conversation." The studio erupted in gasps and uncomfortable silence, as even Kimmel's most loyal audience members couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Cruz's reaction was immediate and explosive. "Did you just say what I think you said?" His voice carried a fury that made everyone in the studio freeze. This wasn't just anger anymore. This was the response of someone who had been pushed beyond every reasonable limit. "Jimmy, you just crossed a line that no professional, no decent human being should ever cross." The audience began to actively boo their own host. The shift was dramatic and devastating for Kimmel, who clearly hadn't expected his own crowd to turn against him so completely. People were standing up, some were walking toward the exits, others were shouting their disapproval directly at the stage. The carefully controlled television environment was dissolving into complete chaos. Kimmel's face went pale as he realized his calculated attack had destroyed his credibility in real time. "I was just making a joke," he stammered, but his weak attempt at damage control only made the situation worse. The smugness was gone now, replaced by panic, as he watched his reputation crumble before his eyes. Cruz moved closer to Kimmel's desk, his presence commanding the entire studio. "A joke? You think mocking someone's deeply held spiritual beliefs is a joke? Jimmy, you've shown everyone watching exactly who you are behind that fake smile and rehearsed monologue. You're not a comedian, you're not an interviewer, you're just a bully with a television show." The production team was in complete disarray. Some were frantically signaling to cut to commercial, others were gesturing to keep the cameras rolling. Nobody had protocols for this level of confrontation, and the confusion was visible in every panicked face behind the scenes. Kimmel made one final desperate attempt to regain control of the situation. "Tom, maybe we should just take a step back here but Cruz cut him off with a gesture that commanded absolute silence from everyone in the studio. "No, Jimmy, you don't get to call time out now. You planned this attack. You brought up my personal beliefs specifically to mock them. You made disgusting comments about things you clearly don't understand, and now you want to pretend this was all just entertainment? The only entertainment here is watching you realize that your cheap shots have consequences." The host's eyes darted around the studio desperately, looking for support that simply wasn't there. His band leader had gone silent. His sidekick was visibly uncomfortable, and even his own production staff seemed to be distancing themselves from the disaster unfolding on their stage. That's when Cruise delivered the line that would be quoted and reshared across social media for months. "You know what the real tragedy is here, Jimmy? You had the opportunity to have a genuine conversation with someone who's dedicated their entire life to entertaining people and pushing the boundaries of what's possible in film. Instead, you chose to be a small-minded bully who thinks attacking someone's faith makes for good television. That says everything about your character and nothing about mine." The audience erupted in sustained applause, finally having something they could genuinely support. But their approval only seemed to make Kimmel more desperate and vindictive. His professional mask was completely gone now, revealing the petty, insecure person he had been hiding. "Fine, Tom. If you can't handle real questions, maybe you should stick to hanging from helicopters where nobody expects you to think." That insult was the final nail in Kimmel's coffin. Cruise's response was swift, controlled, and absolutely devastating. "At least when I'm hanging from helicopters, I'm doing something that requires courage and skill. When you're sitting behind that desk attacking your guests, you're just showing the world how small and pathetic you really are." The studio fell completely silent, except for scattered applause from audience members who couldn't contain their admiration for Cruise's dignity. Under attack, Kimmel sat behind his desk looking smaller and more humiliated than anyone had ever seen him, clearly realizing that his attempt at creating a viral moment had instead exposed him as a cruel and unprofessional host. Cruise began walking toward the stage exit, but paused to deliver one final statement that would cement this moment as a masterclass in maintaining dignity under fire. "I came here tonight to share my passion for filmmaking with people who love movies. Instead, I got reminded that some people in this business care more about tearing others down than building anything worthwhile. That's your choice, Jimmy, but it's not mine." As Cruise headed for the exit, Kimmel made his most cowardly move yet. He signaled to security, apparently hoping to make it appear that Cruise was being removed for being disruptive rather than walking away from Kimmel's unprofessional behavior. Two security guards approached Cruise near the stage exit, clearly uncomfortable with their instructions and embarrassed by the situation. Cruise looked at the approaching guards, then back at Kimmel, and smiled with genuine amusement for the first time since the confrontation began. "Really, Jimmy? Security? For someone who's walking away from your train wreck of an interview?" He turned to the guards with complete respect and professionalism. "Gentlemen, I was already leaving, but if escorting me out helps your boss save face after what just happened here, I'm happy to cooperate." As the security guards awkwardly walked alongside Cruise toward the exit, the audience gave him a thunderous standing ovation that continued until the cameras finally cut away. Kimmel sat alone at his desk, his planned ambush having turned into his own public humiliation and professional suicide. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. One man had maintained his dignity, professionalism, and principles even under the most vicious attack, while the other had revealed himself to be nothing more than a small-minded bully who thought attacking someone's faith would make for good television. What did you think of this incredible confrontation? Should hosts be allowed to attack their guests' personal beliefs for entertainment? Or are some topics completely off-limits? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about the moments when Hollywood's biggest stars show us what real character looks like under pressure.